Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hello, it has been a while. I am Titan on fire. If you can't tell, I'm in a pretty chipper mood right now. Finally have some time to get to these replays, and oh boy, do we have an exciting one, ladies and gentlemen. The ESL Open Cup EU, it is our finals in the bottom right-hand corner of Berlingrad. Start this best of 5. It's showtime. And in the top right, runner-up at IEM Katowice, the former world champion for Kitesy Gaming, it is Reynor. And of course, Reynor's team switch was something that has been discussed a little bit. I know when I was covering the King of Battles qualifiers, we did talk about it a bit, because he was, of course, playing in those matches. And funnily enough, Reynor didn't actually qualify through the first King of Battles European qualifier. He did not manage to make it through, and so, you know, obviously that was a bit of a shock. I think that a lot of people expected Reynor to, of course you would expect Reynor to qualify with the players such as, I mean, Cyril, and players like, I believe it was not MaxPax on the other end, but no, it was MaxPax, right? Yeah, MaxPax did eventually qualify, but you would expect Reynor to make it through in that first round, but that was not the case. Did not end up happening, so he's gonna have to give it another shot, of course, during this Europe Cup. This was a little bit before. I believe this was 1:15, so a bit delayed on getting this cast out there, but one thing that Reynor showed a lot of weakness to was actually a bit of his ZVP. Ended up going up against Skilless, I believe. Recently is the most recent one that I can think of, and ended up losing to, I mean, really creative timing attacks. You know, I think Protoss has started to become a lot more kind of innovative with the builds that they're doing because of the Stargate changes with the Void Ray. Because you now cannot just rely on this unit to encompass your early game defense, Protoss has started to be a lot more kind of creative with what they're doing. Although Showtime, of course, is your kind of stock standard Protoss player. So when we talk about people doing crazy things, of course, you're looking at someone like Hero, who's being very innovative with his Stargate openings and changing things up to try and really play around what the Zerg knows, as they're going to be having Reynor actually pushing out quite a few lings here, going up to 12 early on in this game. We'll have that metabolic boost. Not done quite yet, but is hiding those lings away. Might be trying to find a run by with them sometime fairly soon here. But Showtime's not one of those players who's going to be, I think, really showing any crazy builds. Any, like, you know, 2-3 Stargate Phoenix into Mass Ground. I don't think we're going to really be seeing any of that. It should just be the standard Stargate opening. As you have an Oracle coming out for Showtime, of course, does have the 2 bases already up. Should be working on the Warp Gate. And now we are going to have these lings actually find their way through. And look at this timing from Reynor. As it is 2 adepts, or just a single adept, making its way across the map, you're suddenly into the mineral line. That's already 4 probes going down. Another adept should get sniped as speed finishes up. As, oh, the micro. Showtime barely manages there to just save that one adept. And it's annoying, though. It slows down Showtime. The Protoss is no longer as comfortable with their macros. Suddenly the Zerg, I mean, you don't really commit that much. 10 lings, you get 2 adepts, you get 4 probes. You are absolutely happy with that trade. And now Showtime is really kind of conceding complete map control to the Zerg, and we should just see Reynor from this point on be pretty comfortable in macroing up and getting into the position that Reynor likes, which is, you know, that mid to late game, just getting a super powerful Zerg army that he can start to roll over his opponents with. There we go, 8 drones on the way. We should see this worker count start to balloon eventually. Of course, with that early ling investment that you did see from Reynor, you know, you build the 12 lings. You're committing a lot when there's only 1 adept out on the map, and so you're not going to have as many workers as you would otherwise. He should be able to catch up in that count very, very easily, though, as is just kind of the Zerg mechanics with the larva. As we're going to see these oracles start to fly on in. Already managed to snipe off 3 drones and some good micro from Showtime, but one oracle pretty low, managed to find its way on out, but that hull damage is not going to be something that regenerates like the shields. And that always is a bit worrying as the Protoss. These Oracles are such a useful unit. You really, I mean, they are a catch-all. You can use them for harassment. You can use them to try and get damage. You can scouting and even utility. The Oracle is just such a good unit, and so we will see. We will see. Forge on the way. Robotics facility as well for Showtime is going to be transitioning into the ground play. And this is absolutely what Protoss has been doing recently. This has kind of been the style that everyone has been really kind of diving into, because it's been so long since, you know, just ground units for Protoss were really just the meta. And so it's been nice to see that come back, as +1 ground weapons will be started up. And one thing that we've seen is that Zergs have had trouble with the transitions, because as a Zerg, the response to a Stargate opening into Stargate tech is completely different than the response to a Stargate opening into mass ground. The responses are completely different for the Zerg player in what you need to do and how you need to handle it. And so we've seen some have a bit of trouble there with those transitions, with trying to balance, hey, how many, you know, spore crawlers, queens, and then how much can I sacrifice to get workers up while not building units for when that attack does eventually come across the map, as we are going to see a scout come through from Showtime. Excuse me, from Showtime. Don't think it's going to see really anything of interest. The Roach Warren is coming up, and +1 melee will be on the way. So, of course, Reynor will be heading into units that he's very, very comfortable with the Roach Ling. And he's also getting this 4th hatchery up in fairly good time, although Showtime right now is honestly in a great spot. Like, despite the early damage, despite everything that has happened in this early game, Showtime right now is even on workers with the Zerg, which is absolutely a situation that, as Reynor, you're not comfortable with. This Protoss, I mean, is going to be able to start to macro up to an absolutely massive army very, very shortly, as the tech is going down. 2 gateways, Dark Templar, DT Shrine, Charge, +1. Really everything going to start to come through here for Showtime. At the same time, keeping pressure on with the Oracles. It's 5 more drones, knocks that count down. Reynor had gone up to 79. Trying just to saturate this 4th base as quickly as possible, get his gases up for this Spire and the Baneling Nest, which are going to be finishing up shortly. And for Showtime, doesn't have a ton of information. That Spire, I believe, has been built at the 3rd base. I'm trying to see where it actually has gone down. Okay, yeah, it's actually hidden right between the natural and the 3rd, so it's not a position you're going to scout. Reynor is going to be looking for a, you know, a bit of a surprise attack here with the Mutalisks, and right now, there's not a lot of anti-air for Showtime. Has not gotten into Archons. Does have the Dark Templar Shrine, and of course you can morph Archons from those, but the question is, do you have the money? Do you have the reaction speed too? As 13 Mutalisks on the way, the Oracles are just being kept away from the center of this base. As this, I mean, this switch, this tech switch from Reynor, it feels like Showtime should expect it, because you haven't seen a lot of units. You know that there's just nothing here for Reynor right now. And your question has to be, you just have Lings and Queens. What is your tech? This is not a large enough army to really threaten what the Protoss has until those Mutalisks are out, but they're going to head straight across the map. They're going to try and find damage, and this is absolutely how you start to pick apart a Protoss player who, up to this point, has been fairly unperturbed. In terms of getting harassed across the map, Revelation goes down. Showtime drops out the Disruptors, actually. He's going to be able to find not the best connections, and here we go, Mutalisks into the main base. And this is where things started to get a little bit troublesome for Showtime, as his army is across the map. He has no anti-air in his main. 3 Stalkers are going to be warped in, but 3 Stalkers, well, they don't do pretty good. They don't do very well against 13 Mutalisks. As this push is going to continue to come through, Archons are now here. Force fields will go down. Disruptors dropped out. A lot of damage onto that Immortal, but that's a great Disruptor shot. As the Zealot's still trying to tank at the front, and Showtime is going to try and end the game here with this push, but the Baneling's rolling on through, and Reynor should just have enough to push this back. At the same time, 25 probes have gone down, and counting, as the Disruptors are all that's left, and you can just micro against those. As Reynor going to pick apart Showtime, and GG. Game 1 heading the way of the Zerg player. And around 2,000 atmospheres, which is a bit of a larger map than Berlingrad, so I suspect we're not going to see the early 12 Lings again from Reynor. That should be a build that he, or that should be a strategy that he maybe will phase out on these larger maps, just because even on Berlingrad, as you saw, didn't get a ton of damage. 4 workers, of course, you get the 2 adepts. It's worthwhile, but it wasn't enough to get Reynor into a comfortable position in that game. And actually, SHOWTIME was able to macro back up and actually get a lead in that mid game for the most part. You know, until the Mutalisk transition came through, and we saw that swarm of 13 Mutalisks just head across the map. SHOWTIME, I felt like SHOWTIME was just kind of ahead. But fortunately, you always got to be scouting, and Reynor hid the tech well, managed to make the transition work. Got enough units out to really make it a game-ending move there, as SHOWTIME had to commit across the map. And now into map 2, we're going to see what Daimauer has in store for us. As I said before, SHOWTIME is kind of your standard Protoss player. I would even liken him to someone like a Stats, where he just plays kind of what feels like the statistically best way to play Protoss sometimes, where he's going to go for a super solid opening. He's going to try and hit all of his transitions on time, get his upgrades up. Everything's going to look super clean, and he'll play defensive until he needs to push across the map. Feels like he has enough to try and threaten his opponent. And it's a style that, of course, works very, very well. Of course, it's very dependent, though, on the fact that you're able to outgrow and then also out-control your opponent when either they push across the map, they try and make the game a little bit chaotic, or it eventually comes down to your push so that you just don't get cleaned up and then lose absolutely everything, and this position that you've spent, 8 minutes in the game building up is gone to waste. And that's kind of what happened in the last game. SHOWTIME feels like, ooh, I have enough, I want to get aggressive. Goes to push, but doesn't have full information, and just one little backstab is all it takes for that entire setup to fall apart. As we are going to be having 2 adepts here across the map for SHOWTIME. This is just your standard little poke. He will walk them on in. Of course, the shield damage is pretty negligible. That adept can just recharge that. Will force the drones to be pulled away. Should be able to get at least 1. And then actually completes the shading to the main here. Should be able to find 2 more. The 3rd at the very least. And 4 drones in total will fall before the adept finally goes down. A fairly worthwhile trade. It's a bit of a resource loss for SHOWTIME, but all in all, eliminating 4 workers this early in the game, of course, does just have a compounding effect that you are very happy with, as Stargate has once again been completed. 2 oracles going to be on the way. And SHOWTIME feels like this is the opening that he is very, very comfortable with. This is what he likes to do. Has decided, hey, I feel the best with this opening. And definitely seems like that was the case again last game. It started off fine for him, even taking some worker damage. He was A-okay, as these legs are just going to get pushed back by the Oracle. No surprises there. 2nd and a 3rd one will be on the way, so we are going to be going up to a slightly higher Oracle count in this game. Just means that you're going to have more consistent revelations. As SHOWTIME, you have a bit more HP, so even if you do fly into Queens, you will be able to still push forward a little bit further, get the revelation off, and then back up. And as well, of course, you will have more energy for stasis wards, which is something that we didn't really see utilized by SHOWTIME. But especially if your opponent is not going air, is not going into Mutalisk, if it's a ground army, those stasis wards, of course, can shut down run-bys. They can be very useful if you're defending, and even when you're attacking, if you set them up behind your army so that when you kite back, the opponent runs into them, can have a great effect on the outcome of the fight. And so we'll see how SHOWTIME ends up using these oracles. We'll fly them across the map. Does manage to avoid those first few queens at the 3rd. We'll try and dive into the natural here, but Spore Crawler and 2 queens is a little bit dangerous. You get 2 drones, you lose a lot of health onto that 1 oracle. Not entirely worthwhile, but it's the transition for SHOWTIME, as it was in the last game. And I honestly don't even really mind SHOWTIME going for the exact same build, where it's Twilight Council, Forge, Robotics Facility, additional gateways alongside the 3rd. Because it looked clean, and I felt like if the game state had been slightly different, then SHOWTIME definitely could have, with that push, put the game into a winning position, as these adepts not going to complete the shade on in. Oracles, ooh, one's going to get sniped here. SHOWTIME not doing the best with the Oracle control so far. Takes so much damage onto them for just 2 more drones. All in all, losing 6 drones for Reynor, you get an Oracle, you get 2 adepts. Here, 3 adepts, you're actually fairly happy with that trade. Sorry, 8 drones in total going down. Roachhorn on the way. Evo Chamber will also be finishing up fairly shortly. we should be seeing Reynor go into, again, your standard transition for dealing with this ground army, which will be the Roaches. Of course, a lot more tanky than something like the Zerglings. Just having that beef in your army means that you have a lot more staying power in these fights. You're able to absorb a lot more damage from the Protoss units, and then in turn that allows your Lings and your Roaches over time to trade a lot better in the early game. Of course, as the game goes on, Roaches just get kind of worse and worse as you add in things like Immortals, as you add in air units eventually in the late game, Storm. You know, the Protoss tools really start to phase out the Roach past the 12-minute mark. But for a while, Roaches can be very, very useful. And then even when you hit maxed out, of course, you can just use small groups of Roaches for run-bys. You try and find small pushes to get damage and counterattacks with them while your opponent is moving across the map, just to distract them, as we are going to have a Ling run by here. Try and head onto the natural. Stalker already in position. We'll just be able to snipe a Ling and happily reposition itself in the wall. 2 drones did go down here to the and the drone transfer to those oracles. And SHOWTIME just finding little bits of damage here and there. It's not really enough, though, to make a difference, because right now you're sitting at 85 workers for Reynor. SHOWTIME, of course, 69 himself, is at a decent number to saturate his 3 bases. Will try and take a 4th here. Should be able to get that up with no problem. But +1 is finishing up. You have Charge Lots, you have Archons, and Immortal, and it's a fairly strong push. Once again, there's not a lot for Reynor because that Spire's going down. He wanted to start preparing for his air transition, but that time is not going to be given to him as SHOWTIME. Look at this army. It is quite threatening as the +1 Archons, the +1 Immortal. Those units are high value. They will absolutely trade so well as the Roaches try and fight this straight up. That's not going to work out. The Immortal takes a bit of damage from those Biles. SHOWTIME not really dodging altogether that well. Needs to pull the Zealots back here. You actually don't want to straight up fight these Roaches or the Zealots into the Roaches. Your army is a bit split up and the base hasn't gone down. SHOWTIME does just need to pick a target here. Will pull back a majority of the army. Should just try and knock down the hatchery as more Roaches have been produced. 15 on the way. And SHOWTIME's supply not really increasing behind this. Has a bit of money to use. The Immortal will get picked up. The hatchery will go down. Saves the 2 sentries as they are the most important units to this army. But now Reynor, 162 supply, has the swell of Roaches that is going to come across the map. And SHOWTIME, this 4th base is under a lot of pressure. Where are those stasis wards? Does not have enough energy for them. Just gonna, warp in some Zealots, morph in the Archons. As the Immortals dropped on out. Sentries are also here. Force fields go down to trap a lot of that army. But it's 170 supply for Reynor. This army is absolutely massive for the Zerg. It's 23 Roaches streaming across the map. 6 Ravagers as well. SHOWTIME just has to back up. He's going to just try and defend his natural and his 3rd base because he knows that 4th will most likely go down even if he tries to defend it. As Oracles, great Corrosive Biles knock them down. And this push from Reynor is just absolutely disgusting in how much damage it's getting done. 11 workers go down. The Archons are not able to push into the Roaches. And the main base Stalkers are managing to pick off this small group of Roaches that pushed in beforehand. And Immortal will pop out. And now suddenly SHOWTIME does have an angle here to try and fight. Charge Lots, Archons from both sides. Immortals trying to collapse on in. Still 152 supply for Reynor, but that actually might not matter because the Roach Ravager is all so low. As SHOWTIME is going to start to push it back. These high supply units just not really being that useful as the juggles come through and so many Roaches are going to fall. SHOWTIME going to push down this 4th base once again. And this seesaw action in this game. Both these players trading blows. Reynor commits a little bit too far. And now suddenly, once again, SHOWTIME has an army that is large enough to try and fight this. Should have more Warpins coming through. And mind you, the 4th hatchery for Reynor went down. The 4th Nexus for SHOWTIME did not go down. It did not follow. The Archon isn't picked up. The 2nd Archon here should be juggled back. There we go. And this fight is just getting taken. There's 3 Immortals. SHOWTIME has managed to keep all of his Immortals alive. Hasn't lost a single one. Now has a 4th base before his opponent. Has +2 ground weapons. And SHOWTIME, sure, he's down in supply, but his Roach Ravager supply, that is not cost-efficient units. As I said, once you get to this point where there's three Immortals, there's Archons. These Roaches and Ravagers do not trade well. 4 more Archons going to be morphed in, and you already have 4 Immortals on the map. This army from SHOWTIME is ridiculous. It will not die. It will not die as the Immortal is picked up, and I mean, Reynor's trying to push this down. He's trying to kite it out with the Ravagers, so you can do a good job of it. But he needs to find damage here. He just needs to find something, some way to try and knock down this fourth base or deal considerable damage to his opponent, or else Showtime will just macro this game into a lead, as the Immortal juggles have just been fantastic, dodging the Biles now. And it just doesn't feel like there's really any pushing power left here for Reynor. Queens are going to be brought across the map, though. I mean, Reynor, he's committing all in. It's just continued roaches on the production tab. He still has 71 workers, so he's going to take another base behind this. He's going to keep mining. But if you lose this army, if you are not able to win this fight, then suddenly this game is going to take a turn for the worse for Reynor. That Immortal getting low is still going to push forward, finally juggled back, as Showtime with just a few units is pushing the entire army of Reynor back to the Xel'Naga Watchtower. More Warprin's going to come through. A few of the Archons have gone down. The first Immortal has fallen. But still, it is 2k more resources lost for the Zerg. A Zealot run by onto the 5th base should be able to knock down that hatchery. Units have to be brought back as the fight is going down on the right side. Queens are now here and they can tank these Zealots just a little bit better, but they don't have a lot of energy, as Showtime is catching up in supply, and that is not something that you like to see if you are a Zerg player with Roach Ravager. Extractors have to be canceled. 5th base is rebuilt. This 4th is finally mining again. But right now, this army composition just does not scale well for Reynor. And mind you, it's +2 attack for... It's not only +2 attack for Showtime. It's +1 shields as well. These Archons, these 6 Archons have +1 shields. They are so tanky. Oh my god, the juggle. Showtime keeping all of these Immortals alive, still living up to their names. What? Showtime? That is not fair. All of these units somehow staying alive are going to retreat back to shield batteries. They're going to get healed up. Reynor, he's approaching maxed out, but this army just does not die. Showtime's control has been absolutely impeccable. Corrosive Biles are going down, but the shield battery overcharge is not able to heal, as one Immortal will finally fall. The second to die this game, but another Zealot run by. Showtime is handling this game almost perfectly. His +3 is on the way. He gets another cancel on the hatchery. The army has to be pulled back, and Reynor can't push. More Archons being warped in. Again, they have +1 shields. This whole army is just so powerful. And if you look at the just cost efficiency, the army value, sure it's even, but the relative power of these units is not even, as the Corrosive Biles are getting so much value here for Reynor. He's actually going to be looking for another attack here into the 3rd. The units have been split by Showtime. He's trying to take fights on 2 flanks. Need to be careful though, as Corrosive Biles are going down. Reynor trying to kite this army out, but the Ravagers are just getting caught up to, and now the juggles are going to come through, as at the same time, on the left flank, the Archons are just going to absolutely shred through these units, as that +1 armor for these Roaches and Ravagers does not do enough. And Showtime defends on 2 fronts. Showtime has +3 coming in very, very shortly. The +2 of Reynor has just started up. He's, gone into maybe an okay position. It's 4 base versus 4 base. The 5th base is once again going to be canceled. And uh-oh, here comes the army of Showtime. Finally, though, a counterattack is going to find its way in for Reynor. Shuts down the shield batteries. With these Roaches, he's going to be trying to find he's going to try and find enough damage to swing this game back in his favor, but the army is here. Look at this army. It's 8 Immortals, 8 Archons, as Showtime is just absolutely crushing through. The entire Zerg army is going to fall. And even though this counterattack is finding damage, it is not enough. The 4th base goes down. This is a +3 Protoss army who's up in supply versus Roach Ravager. And Reynor tried his hardest, but this composition, the decision making, the micro from Showtime, this game, absolutely beautiful. As you're gonna try and fight this, but guess what? Still, 8 Immortals stand. Only 4 have fallen this game, despite countless pressure from Reynor. GG! Game 3. Top right-hand corner of Hardwire tried his hardest with the Ravager pullbacks, the Corrosive Biles. Looked like he got so close, but was not able quite to find that final push he needed to swing the game back into an even position. Guide C Gaming, it is Reynor. And in the bottom left, living up to his name and definitely making a show of it, the Immortals living up to their names as well, the Archons. Everything coming together in that last game in an absolutely beautiful display of Micro. And, I mean, just beautiful display of Protoss power from this man. Ladies and gentlemen, get hyped because it is showtime. And it was a show. I mean, the juggles, everything there for showtime. There were a few moments where it got a bit closer than you'd like, but it felt like whenever he needed to pull back, it felt like he got enough damage done. He managed to retreat before too much was lost. I mean, there was the moment where it felt like Reynor was going to be able to push, was going to be able to find the attack. It was 160 supply to 110, but then Reynor doesn't kill the fourth, and that, I think, was the biggest oversight of all for Reynor. Showtime killed the fourth hatchery. He caught the fourth hatchery, managed to retreat, saved most of his units. Reynor wasn't able to do the same. Reynor was not able to do the same. Tried to get really greedy, tried to just end the game there, pushing into the natural. And that meant that Showtime just had a fourth Nexus up. He was constantly ahead of base until Reynor finally established that fourth. But then, while Reynor's trying to just power push to make up for how much he lost, to try and find some damage, Showtime is constantly throwing Zealot run-bys across the map. He's canceling the fifth base time and time again. And, I mean, it was just really, that is how you are supposed to play out that situation. And I don't think there's really a better way to handle it. And I gotta say, Showtime looking good. It's been a while since I've really seen him in anything. Of course, we did have the off season. We had the lull in the amount of games that were just being played in general. But finally, with everything getting back into gear, ESL Open Cups, with, I mean, tournaments now going to be coming up. I mean, we've had, of course, the GSL, which has been the first tournament, and that has been, I mean, it's been up and down. The GSL is always up and down. As this pylon block is going to come through for the third base, should immediately get canceled. Oh, actually, he's killed. That should not happen. The drone will go down, but not exactly how that is supposed to turn out. As Showtime will end up losing a pylon, but kills a drone. Two Zerglings manages to get a delay onto this third base. Ooh, I love this from Showtime, actually. Fakes the shade, is going to be able to cancel the third once. God! Extractor trick will save the drone, but still, this third base is not going down for Reynor, and that is quite annoying already. As, there's no links here in the natural as well, so Adept's going to shade on in, going to start to try and just get the one-shots here. There's only two lings, they're immediately going to go down, so drones have to be pulled, and Showtime. This is already a ton of damage with just two Adepts, and they both get out. The third base is delayed a solid 30-45 seconds. You get two drone kills, you get a drone pull. Now, Showtime, you are so happy with how this has turned out, and now you have Oracles on the way to team up here with the Adepts. And we'll see if this early game can continue to try and snowball for Showtime. Doesn't end up completing that shade into the main. So, of course, going to see the fact that this third base is just so far behind. And, of course, it's not, game ending, but it is shocking. And it's going to slow down Reynor a considerable amount, as you suddenly just don't have that extra larva that you otherwise would. Showtime has his third base on the way. It's really going to be, I mean, only about I would even say 20-30 second delay between the third bases going up. And as the Protoss, that's a situation that you are so happy with. So happy with. As we now have 5 Adepts headed across the map, and Showtime, I think this is where he's going to look to try and find some damage. 5 Adepts, 2 Oracles. Can, of course, move those Oracles into... Oh. That's not good, actually. Gonna start to lose some of these creep tumors. One of them already killed by Reynor himself. As, I mean, there's just not a lot of units here. The Oracle's gonna try and draw away some of the fire, and now the Adepts trying to go into the main, but 3 Queens are here. Showtime not wanting to fight this straight up. It feels like, I mean, of course, 2 Oracles have a lot of fighting power, but just doesn't want to go for it. Adept's gonna look for just the drone kills. Fine, too. Shade on towards the third, and Reynor having to pull the drones. Is not taking a ton of damage just yet, though. only loses the 3 drones. Is going to be able to, I mean, get rid of 4 of the Adepts. Actually, oh, it doesn't get the 5th. But now here we go. Oracle's going to try and dive on in. There's not a lot of Queens here at the natural, and they can start to one-shot those drones. 10 in total fall. You lose 4 Adepts. Showtime still getting the better end of this early game trade. As 3 gateways on the way. Robotics facility as well, and Showtime gearing up here to get into a pretty powerful position. As another drone will just fall. Adept will just find its way on out, and this Adept, 9 kills. This Adept Fryer. This Adept's gonna stay alive. We're gonna name this. This is Alex the Adept. 9 kills. Absolutely insane. As once again, Oracle's gonna dive on in. 1 does go down, but you get 4 more drone kills. And Reynor being kept down to 60 workers right now. Showtime's at 64. Showtime is Blink and +1 on the way. And oh, I love this from Showtime. Obviously knows that Roaches is probably going to be the call here. As, oh no, Alex! Fast shade on in, gets a 10th kill. Oh, gets not another drone, the transfuse. And the Adept will fall. Oh. As the 10 kill Adept does go down. As I said, I love this build choice here from Showtime. You know that Reynor is going to want to go into Roaches. Reynor realizes he's taking a lot of damage, so he wants to get a unit that's going to be able to defend and be cost efficient in these early game trades. But what do you have coming across the map? +1 Blink Stalkers. This is a build that has been coming back into relevancy. Is the 8-gate 3-base Blink Stalker timing attack. And it is so strong if your opponent is already behind. Because, of course, your Stalkers, they're going to do extra damage versus these Roaches. You have the micro ability. You have the pushing power. And this attack, I don't know if Reynor's going to have enough. Roaches are going to be produced coming out en masse. But this 4th base needs to go up for Reynor. As here we go, Stasis Ward behind his army. This is absolutely the correct move. Corrosive Biles will be used to knock it down. Showtime not wanting to push this position, though, has a lot of floating money. Is going to use on 8 Stalkers at home. Is not going to try and just push this down. Is instead going to wait. Is going to use these units to secure his own 4th base not that long after his opponents. And continue scouting with the Oracles. Aspire is on the way, though. Showtime not able to scout it just yet. This Reynor's actually going to be looking to go across the map here with the Roach Ravager. This is a really dangerous push. And it gets scouts out by the Oracles. Ravagers go down. Revelation on the entire army, and Showtime completely safe right now as the 4th base for Reynor will go up, which is obviously a bit of a relief. There was a moment there where I felt like Showtime might actually have a large enough army to push it, but the Roach swell came in just in time to be able to stop that from happening. Here we go, Robotics Facilities. Are going to be getting Disruptors now onto the map. Blink Stalker Disruptor is the name of the game for Showtime. Currently only sitting down 20 supply versus Roach Ravager. Mind you, Mutalisks aren't even on the map just yet. This is, again, Showtime right now in the mid game is in such a great position. It feels like he has all the cards right now working in his favor. Of course, again, doesn't know about the Spire, but you already have Blink Stalkers with +1. You're not really that worried about the Mutalisks, as a second Baneling Nest has accidentally been built. Zealots are going to be warped on into the main base. These are slow Zealots. They don't have charge just yet. We'll get charged right now, and there we go. Queen is immediately going to fall. These Lynx in a horrible choke point with that Roach Warren. As now Showtime going to look for a push across the map. 12 Mutalisks are on the way. You have to be careful here as Queens are going to go down. Ooh, Corrosive Biles dodged so well, and the Mutalisks are spotted. Showtime knows that Mutalisks are out on the map. He's going to continue to fight this. And 12 workers have gone down in the main base. The Mutalisks have to be brought back just to deal with that. At the same time, the 4th base is under attack. A great force field here. A ton of damage with that first Purification Nova as a Zealot run by onto the 5th base. Is going to try and knock it down. Should be able to get the cancel. Gets the kill. As Ling's now trying to get rid of the Disruptors. Showtime not quite paying attention. He's going to be able to now retreat. Great force fields again. Disruption Nova not the best, though, as the Zealots are going to get cleaned up. But these Mutalisks, their value was in the surprise factor, and they have been kept across the map having to defend. And now look at this. There's cannons at home. High Templars being warped in. Feels like there's not really a need for Showtime to respond. It's 11 Mutalisks. You have 14 Blink Stalkers. You have Archons. You have cannons and shield batteries. SHOWTIME can just warp in Stalkers when he needs to fight. Right now, I believe it's working with +2. As Link's going to try and find a counterattack, and you just run into a massive army. As here we go, Mutalisks diving on in. SHOWTIME is going to lose a few workers right off the bat. As the cannons trying their best. Phoenix are now out, though, and those have been produced from the Stargate, and that's the response for SHOWTIME. And again, this is just the versatility of this opening for the Protoss player. Now you have, 2 Phoenix at a time. He added on a second Stargate. Shield upgrade is on the way. This is so interesting. As SHOWTIME actually opting for the shield upgrade before armor. It says, listen, I think Archons need the upgrade more, and obviously all Protoss units, half their HP is in shields, so it's pretty worthwhile. As here we go, a fight is going to try and be found. Oh, those Banelings don't have speed just yet. A lot of them do manage to get out as the Phoenix are going to chase down these Mutalisks. I mean, with cannons here, this is a death trap for Reynor's Mutas. He needs to try and defend back at home, but look at these Purification Novas as the Blink Packs aren't here just yet. Finally will come through. The Archons taking at the front. It doesn't matter. GG! SHOWTIME takes game 3. Whew, and I gotta take a deep breath. These last 2 games have been just absolutely cutthroat. Both these players are trying to find hammer blows to each other's jaws, and most of them have been landing. Most of them have been landing, but SHOWTIME's have just been landing a little bit harder. And his play, this series, I mean, I'm loving how SHOWTIME has been approaching this series. I love SHOWTIME's style right now. It just feels so solid. It feels like SHOWTIME knows how to play this style. He's comfortable with it. He's practiced it, and knows the ins and outs of how these interactions go. You know, in game 2, Mass Archon Immortal. In game 3, actually really skips out on the Immortals entirely. Has a few Archons, but it's just Stalker Disruptor. Has a completely different unit composition from the same opening, and from, for the most part, the same early game as well. It's just a pleasure to see, as the first slings are going to get scouted out by that probe, and SHOWTIME just going to continue to try and be a little bit annoying. Tries to see if there's any more. Sees the 4. Stargate is on the way. It's the same opening once again. And as for Reynor, I mean, in every single one of these games, he's been taking damage early, put into a position where he doesn't feel, where it's not as comfortable to go into a macro game. Is going into Roach Ravager, and is having to try and find damage with Roach Ravager, trying to find openings with this unit composition when he's already sitting pretty much on even terms with the Protoss, which in all regards means that the Protoss is considered pretty much ahead. And so we're going to see if there's any switch up. I mean, Reynor, he's a player who absolutely can. That's why he is one of the best in the world. That's why he was second place in IEM Katowice. That's why he's a former world champion, is because he's able to, in these longer series, adapt and change his play style. It does just feel like, though, this new brand of Protoss is really knowing how to approach this, I mean, the new patch, and how to really make use of it. This is a nice catch here for Reynor. The Adept Fire being split decently well. One Adept will manage to survive as the Oracle's headed across the map, but of course, that's a little bit annoying for SHOWTIME. Losing those 2 Adepts, that is a lot of your early harassment potential in those units, as just pull away on the probe, we'll be able to get up this 3rd base without much trouble. Warcraw's on the way, though, for Reynor. Is just going to prepare for what usually is, again, that early game harassment from his opponent. But this game doesn't look like that's going to be kind of the style. It's just the 2 Adepts. 4 will be, 3rd and 4th will be warped in. But you just have the 2 Oracles so far from SHOWTIME. Hasn't gone up to 3 as he has been in the past 2 games. And then, of course, there's really, I mean, the difference between 2 and 3 Oracles is it's preference. It's what you want to do with them. If you feel like you are going to use those 3 Oracles to dive in, if you feel like you can get the damage done with them, and also use their abilities and their scouting, then 3 Oracles is usually really nice to have. And the 2, it offers pretty much the same utility, just a little bit cheaper if you want a faster transition. And it seems like that's going to be the case for Showtime in this game. It's a lot faster on the Robo Facility, on the Forge, and it's also 4 more gateways. So we might see this +1 once again out of Showtime, where he's going to try and head on into maybe Immortals, Blink Stalkers potentially, and the +1 ground weapons. We'll see what the idea is going to be here for the Protoss player. Alright, so the Warping of Sentries to try and knock down this Overlord, and it's slow, but the Tickle Beams will eventually be able to get rid of it. Stasis Ward's being popped down, and well, managed to catch a bunch of Lings there. 2 more gateways on the way, +1 was started up, and we're still waiting to see, I mean, what the idea is here for Showtime, because right now what this is looking like is it's going to be a Sentry Immortal push, which is something that I have not seen in forever. I mean, this was something that, is this the parting build? Wait, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact build order, but it feels a lot like the Soul Train right now. You have an Immortal, you have Sentries, you have a few Stalkers. Reynor has brought across the Queens though, but they're off creep right now. You actually don't want to take this fight off creep if you are Reynor. There's a nice transfuse from one of the Queens coming into support. But you're not going to have this transfusion available. Because here we go, the fight it comes on. Oh, the clutch creep drop from the Overlord means that the transfusions are going to come through, and Reynor is going to try and crush this with a Queen Walk. We don't see him often, but when they come through, they are certainly surprised. And what does Showtime have? He has this +1. There's about 30 seconds away from finishing up. You just need to buy the time, but are you going to have that time? The Oracles go down. This Stasis Ward is not in a good enough position to really be useful as the Sentries are going to start to fall. And I mean, Showtime wanted to be the one who was going to push with this build. He wanted to be the one to get out on the map, but now suddenly the entire Zerg Armada is here. The Queens, they have creep, which means they have transfuse, which means this is just as powerful as it has been in the past, and I don't think that Showtime is going to be able to hold on. +1 has not finished up. It just took a little bit longer than he needed. Shield Battery overcharge doesn't seem like it's good enough, and a single Ling triggers that Stasis Ward. As a 3-base Reynor geared up, roaches and Lings across the map, sprung the trap. And this 3rd base should be forfeit. The shield batteries are running out of energy. The Stalkers are trying to be juggled back. GG, we're going to game 5. Here we are. Who would have thunk it that we would be in a situation where it's 2-2, where we're on to Blackburn for our final map. Ladies and gentlemen, bottom left-hand corner, KaiZ gaming the Queen Walk. Turns out, it's still pretty darn good. Especially on a short map like that. Curious Minds definitely does lend itself to it. It's Reynor! Bottom left-hand, or bottom right-hand corner. Wasn't expecting the Queen Walk. I wasn't either. I was focused on the fact that it seemed like for the first time in forever we were going to see a Soul Train come across the map. But was caught out. Curious Minds is such a small map, and that rush distance definitely doesn't unhelp when you're trying to defend against a Queen Walk. But still, the timing was impeccable. He wasn't able to hold on. Did not have the unit composition to. Still trying to close it out. It's Showtime. And those were long-winded intros. I'm sorry. I was just kind of talking. I wanted to get into my my early game talk before I even got through the intros. Curious Minds. You get the Queen Walk. I think that's... I mean, it's kind of to be expected, I think. In hindsight, when you look at it, of course, the map is just so small. It lends itself to the fact you can quickly spread creep. You have the Overlords, which will be able to drop creep as well. All of it just ends up working out to the in a way that it's a map where that build is still very viable. And I think that's really what the new patch has done, is that it has limited the viability of the Queen Walk. Before, on a map like Pride of Altaris, or yeah, mostly Pride of Altaris, you would be able to Queen Walk across the map to try and get the gold base of the Protoss, because you really didn't have to be on creep the whole time. I mean, you would slowly walk those queens across the map. And that just because of the change with transfusions not being able to be used on creep, you actually eliminate the viability of that build on larger maps. However, on something like Curious Minds, on something like Berlingrad, you could very much still go for a Queen Walk. As here we go, Showtime once again going to try and delay this hatchery. Doesn't have the money to put down a pylon, so is not going to end up really causing too much of a disruption to the Zerg build. And we're just going to be seeing the Adepts here actually shade on into the main base. We're looking to see if we can find any damage. Actually, the Queen's out of position here. Should be able to find at least a drone. Ooh, target fire not quite there. Ooh, doesn't get the drone. Wolves trying to find one here into the natural. Actually does manage to get a singular drone. A second Adept is joining. Not able to snipe off that one. And it's Adept harass here for, I mean, Showtime trying to make it work, but actually the counters for Reynor have been pretty solid. And that just does not work out at all for the Protoss. The drone goes down for 2 Adepts, and Reynor handled that fairly masterfully. Couldn't really have asked for any better. I mean, maybe he could have stopped that one drone from going down, but that is such an insignificant amount. The fact that you managed to clean up the Adepts, you managed to get those early units off the map for the Protoss, that really, you're not really worried. As Reynor, you're trying to bait out right now the energy from the Oracle. Showtime not going to bite just yet. Finally have to turn on that pulsar beam. More gateways coming through, and Showtime not really getting up into any tech just yet. Still on the Oracle production, is not going to go up to 3. Stops at 2. Robotics facility goes down, and I'm getting to wonder if this is perhaps a map-specific thing, where Showtime will go up to 3 Oracles on certain maps and not on others. And that is very much a possibility, and I would love to try and get the reasoning behind it. If it is just a build order difference, or if it's because of the map, therefore the build order he wants to use, therefore 2 or 3 Oracles. But we'll see what the plan is for the Protoss. These Oracles are going to try and dive on in. There's already a Spore Crawler here, so once again, 1 Oracle taking a lot of damage. Good focus fire from Reynor. Right now, I mean, I think this is one of the best early games that Reynor has had. This and last game have felt so solid for him as Adept shade on in, but that's not really the position you want to shade into. 4 drones in total have ended up falling, but you end up losing 4 Adepts for it. It's finally starting to turn in more so in the favor of being somewhat worthwhile, but still, Showtime is giving up so many units just to try and find this damage. And that means that, yeah, Reynor is just going to run these lings across the map. One has to be completed there with a Stalker. Sentries are defending the 3rd base. Probe will still go down, but it just feels like Showtime's losing a lot and not really gaining much of anything. Reynor's still at 58 workers, 10 drones on the way. A 4th base going to be just able to go up without any issue. And mind you, there is a Twilight Council on the way. There are Stalkers +1 and the Robotics base. So we once again might see Showtime go into the Blink Stalkers with the Disruptors. And it's a composition that I feel like on this map especially is very, very good. You have a lot of high ground that you can play with your Blink ups to try and dodge the vision of your opponent, to try and lose that aggro. And of course, you have a lot of walls that you can blink around to try and get out of the way of those roaches. But no, it's going to be charge lots with the Disruptors, which is, of course, it's units that, of course, work fine together, but it's a bit of an anti-synergy sometimes, where you might end up getting a situation where your charge lots charge in, Disruptor shot goes off, and you end up losing 1 or 2 of your own units, as this 4th base is attempting to be sieged down from the back, but the Queens are here. Good force field, though, and these 2 Queens are going to try and knock down a bit of their HP, get the transfusion energy out of them. The Raptors now being brought on over, and this is such a weird timing here from Showtime, but actually getting a decent bit of value with it. Still managing to defend at the front against these lings as the gold base is going down for the Protoss. Ooh, that probe getting a little bit trapped here. Zealots are going to have to be warped on, and they don't have +1 quite yet, so they don't two-shot these Zerglings. Will finally now be able to. This cannon goes down, the army is brought back. And behind this, Reynor is gearing up, and this is a worrisome position for the Protoss. This is the best early game that the Zerg has had. This is a situation where Reynor is going to be able to macro up as much as he wants into a position that he is completely comfortable with. And now you have a Spire on the way. Baneling Nests will be finishing up shortly. +1 missile attacks, Glial Reconstitution. So the Roaches are going to be hitting all their upgrades on time. It's getting just a little bit sketchy here for Showtime. And is going to be looking to try and push out on this map with this kind of ragtag army of charge lots, stalkers, sentries, and immortals. And disruptors. It's a weird army composition for Showtime. Is on Phoenix production now. I believe did actually scout out the Spire, so Reynor ends up canceling that. Is not going to be going for Mutalisk this game. Revelation on the Zerglings means that Showtime knows what's happening, and those Zealots absolutely shred through the very, very light units that are the Zerglings. Sword Prism going to try and find some damage into the drone line. Drones getting pulled back. The split, though, is it good enough? Ooh, 7 drones go down. And right now, both these players are trying to find small advantages, both of them getting up to a very, very healthy base count. Upgrades coming through, +2 for both players. Oh, and it does look like the Spire did finish. Reynor did just replace it, I think. Originally had it placed, I think, in the middle of the map. Potentially canceled, replaced it. Spire is done, though. 12 Mutalisks on the way. As Oracle is just going to try and knock down these Ravagers. Queens come through. Are going to be able to stop that from happening. But continued Phoenix production, I mean, already sitting only at 2. It's not the healthiest count for dealing with 12 Mutalisks. Will certainly be something to aid in this defense. No Blink Stalkers are going to be available. Showtime. This is the Mutalisk transition that killed him in game number 1. We'll be able to scout it, though. Warp Prism will go down, but you see the Mutalisk, and that's a big catch. If you are Showtime, immediately +1 ship weapons, a fleet beacon, shields, and more Phoenix. That's an interesting response here from Showtime as Stasis Sword catches a Ravager. Disruptor Shock goes out. Doesn't get the most value, but there should be a second one here to join, as these Baneling connections are not the best, actually, just rolling onto the Archons, which is absolutely what you want if you are Showtime. Mutalisk still trying to get damage in, the mineral lines from this, but now you have Phoenix out, and they're going to be able to clean these up fairly easily. Stalkers also fighting them, and Showtime finding a great fight here on both fronts. Second Stargate on the way. You're going to be looking for Anion Pulse Crystals. I think it's maybe going to be the plan, or potentially just going straight on into carriers as Showtime. I mean, you get rid of all of the Mutalisks go down. That's so many more resources lost for the Zerg. It's actually insane. 2.6 thousand resources more lost for Reynor. About 1,000 gas. It's not a situation you want to be in as the Zerg. Of course, it's still very, very powerful because he has right now a 5-base economy. But you're working with Roach Ravager, and that's a greater Spire on the way. Reynor potentially going to be immediately trying to go into Broodlords to once again catch Showtime off guard. And, well, I mean, it's a good idea, but oh, those Disruptor shots! This gets so much value. That's disgusting. This efficiency is disgusting as Baneling's trying to roll on through to try and find something here for Reynor. The shield upgrades aren't done, so the army's just a little bit squishier than Showtime would like, but the Disruptors are juggled back. They're not going to go down. And Reynor has almost lost double the resources of his opponent with just that one engagement. His carriers are now on the way. The Greater Spire is not yet done. Corruptors aren't really on the map. Reynor is investing so much gas into rebuilding these Ravagers and these Banelings, which he has lost. As these Disruptors, where are they? Where are they? Oh, they're in the Warp Prism. I want to see how many kills they had, but they have been absolutely disgusting for Showtime. Once again, disruptors going to be placed in the back and try and look for an opening here as Zerglings themselves just fighting Zealots. It's not what you want. As here we go, Showtime continuing to try and just look for an angle here with these units. Has the speed on the Warp Prism. Corruptors are now on the way, but Carriers are out. DTs being morphed on into Archons. Warp Prism. There we go. Disruptor shot going out. 6 and 15 kills respectively. One disruptor goes down. As the fight is being taken at the front, the Archons actually doing a great job of taking out most of those Banelings. More Archons going to have to be brought through, though. The Singular Immortal just getting so much value against these armored units. As the DT is also here, and the blink forward from Showtime absolutely has enough to try and force this fight, and he's continuing to trade so efficiently. It's starting to lose, though. It was, I mean, insane. For a brief second, Reynor had lost twice the minerals than Showtime had, but now it started to even out. Reynor has started to find a bit more damage. Corruptors are going to find their way here into the main base as I move. Yeah, start to look for some of the caustic sprays onto these Stargates. Sees that the Carriers are building, so of course knows that Showtime is looking for these late game transitions as Stargate goes down. And Reynor once again trying to posture at this 5th base. He knows on even bases he needs to try and find something, but look at this angle. Disruptor shot gets 2 Ravagers. And Showtime just able to so easily push back this army. Stalkers in production, do they have Blink? Yes. Blink has been researched alongside the charge, and this army from Showtime is massive. As double run-bys here. Ling's gonna head into the 5th, Ling's in the 3rd. 3 probes already do go down. Cannons are here at the 5th base, though. Cannons are at the 4th. Doesn't look like Reynor's really gonna be able to find a lot of damage aside from that 3rd base. As here we go, the 6 is under fire. This 6th hatchery is actually so important for Reynor to get up. The disruptor goes down before the Nova does finish. Banelings don't get really good connections, though. It's a lot on an Archon and a few Stalkers as continuing to fight this, but Reynor is actually crushing through. The Carriers all go down. The Stalkers have to retreat. The Immortal falls, and you get the hatchery, but you drop 80 supply. As Showtime, who's now trying to fight, trying to delay as the Stasis Ward goes up. Great pickups onto the Ravagers, is going to be able to start to snipe this down now. As somehow Showtime, he's down 40 army supply, but he is trying to fight this as Lings are now streaming across the map. Stasis Ward very nicely going to be able to stop a lot of those Zerglings, and Reynor cannot continue to push this location, but 24 probes ended up going down. Those Lings at the 3rd found their way to the 5th. There were no cannons in the mineral line, and Showtime is now down to 67 workers. A very healthy count still is going to be able to get himself into a decent position, but he needs to move these workers. He needs to get these bases saturated. He just doesn't have a lot. Finally found the transition now. 23 workers onto that 5th base. I mean, these continued run-bys being so annoying. Caustic Spray is just knocking down absolutely everything. Where's the response to it? Zerglings into the 3rd base as well. Showtime, he is getting picked apart. Dark Templar, though, being so useful in getting rid of all of these run-bys. But these Corruptors, so much damage. Only 1 Stargate left, but only 9 gateways. That's the Forge fallen too, actually. Yeah, the Forge has gone down. There's no more upgrades for the ground units of Showtime, and that's a big deal. Right now, you're working with only +2 and +1 shields. I mean, this ground army, you could be so much more powerful with +3. The Blink Stalkers would be so useful against these Broodlords, which are now being morphed in. Cocoons across the map, 8, 9. Can potentially look for a 10th Broodlord here is Reynor, as this is his transition. 10 Broodlords, a whole bunch of ground units. Of course, there is no anti-air, so if Showtime ends up getting Phoenix again, if he goes into Void Race, goes into anything, will be dangerous. But it feels like right now Reynor is just so far ahead. Disruption Nova, so much damage. These roaches are going to get caught out. This is a great catch here by Showtime. He's not going to lose anything. As Zergling run by into the natural base now. Disrupted Nova. Going to be able to find quite a bit of value in the... Of course, the Zealot's able to push it back. As more Corruptors on the way, Reynor very easily going to be able to remax, but you can't really afford to take too many more trades like that. As Showtime's going to try and push, and well, he's going to scout the Broodlords now. And this is a bit worrisome, but there's so many Archons. There's actually 7 Archons here for Showtime. He absolutely has the AoE to deal with the Broodlings. That's not going to be a worry for the Protoss player. The additional 2 Stargates going down, a second fleet beacon being built. I think that's an oversight by Showtime. I think didn't realize that the fleet beacon is still alive, as Zealot Warpin's going to come on through to try and stop these Zergling run-bys, and actually going to do the best job of it, losing a lot of Zealots, and this is a great trade so far here for Reynor. The Broodlords managed to push back the units. The Phoenix still going to push forward and try and get some damage here. There's not a lot of Corruptors. The Phoenix can just focus down these Broodlords. One already falls. The singular Corruptor is not enough to push this back so far. Great Disruption Novas to try and push back the units. Another Broodlord going to fall, but there's Lings in the main. There's Lings in the natural. Workers are going to start to go down as, these Broodlords are just sieging up the third base. Tempest is in production, but it has to be canceled as Showtime. Reynor is pushing him down. Reynor has found so much value with all these units, and I don't know if the Protoss can hold. It's 130 supply to 190. Showtime has played one hell of a series, but the macro of Reynor, if you give him a situation, a position that he is comfortable with, he will absolutely take advantage of it, as the entire mineral line has been cleaned out. All the units are gone. 32 Banelings are on the way. Showtime blinks forward, and here comes the Banelings. It is just Archons. There's no Storms. As the Archons actually absorb a lot of damage, though. And wait a second. Showtime actually finds a ton of value. Wait, Showtime still 5 Archons, still a whole lot of Stalkers. Reynor's running out of money. Reynor doesn't really have a lot of money left, has 15 Roaches on the way. But look at this army. The Archons are still alive. The Jugglers are going to come through. The Blink Forwards. Showtime going to try and find so much value here with these units. If he can knock down the entire ground army, then maybe this game can be swung in his favor. And the single Archon here is going to get caught out. These Disruptors, you have to be careful not to lose anything more than you need to as Showtime, as he is trying to fight back with 52 army supply. But the Disruptors, oh, they need to be careful. Disruptive Novas go out. Should be able to now pick them up here with the Warp Prism. The base goes down. Showtime, this is it. You need to fight here. You need to try and find the engagement. Where's the Disruptors? They're coming in, but the Stalkers, they all go down. The Archons fall. GG. Reynor is going to take it.